When a woman ignores you, your first move is not to get her attention back. It is to find out why losing it can still control you. Because the moment her silence makes you check your phone, question your worth, abandon your routine, or consider begging for clarity, you have learned something more important than what she feels about you. You have found where your self-respect still depends on recognition, and chasing her will not restore your pride. It will teach your mind that rejection is an emergency and attention is relief. But do not make the opposite mistake and ignore her harder just to provoke a reaction. Revenge is still obedience when your behavior is organized around her. The real test is whether you can remain disciplined, accurate, and intact when attention disappears. These are the 7 laws of self-command, and they begin where the need to be chosen ends. There is a reason silence can disturb a man more than a direct rejection. A direct rejection gives you information. Silence takes information away. And when information disappears, imagination takes over. You begin negotiating with possibilities. Maybe she is busy. Maybe she lost interest. Maybe she is testing you. Maybe another man appeared. Maybe you said the wrong thing. And without noticing it, you stop living in reality and begin reacting to theories. This is why being ignored can feel humiliating even when nothing has technically happened. No insult was spoken, no door was slammed, no final sentence was delivered. Yet your mind begins searching for a verdict. Your body tightens, your focus breaks, your pride becomes restless because silence gives the ego no object to fight. It gives you absence, and absence invites projection. Psychological research on ostracism explains why this cuts deeper than many men admit. Being ignored can threaten belonging, self-esteem, control, and the feeling that your existence matters. That means you are not merely fighting the absence of a message, you are fighting to restore control. And if you do not understand that mechanism, you will call emotional panic taking action. You will tell yourself you are only trying to clarify. You will tell yourself you are only checking whether she saw the message. You will tell yourself, one more text will restore peace. But often, you are not seeking truth. You are seeking relief. Before the first law, understand what powerful men do when recognition itself is removed. Steve Jobs was 30 when the board of Apple, the company he helped create, pushed him out publicly. He later admitted it was devastating. The work that had consumed his adult life was suddenly taken from him. But the decisive moment did not happen during the humiliation. It happened after it. He did not spend the next decade begging Apple to validate him. He started again. He created NXT. He built Pixar. Apple eventually bought NXT, and Jobs returned to the company that had once expelled him. The pressure was public rejection. The action was redirected creation. The proof was that NXT and Pixar existed without Apple approving of him. The power lesson is simple. Rejection removed his position, but it did not remove his capacity. Michael Bloomberg faced a similar break. After 15 years at Salomon Brothers, he was pushed out following the firm's acquisition in 1981. He could have treated that as the final verdict on his career. Instead, he used what he knew about financial information systems to build a new company. That company became Bloomberg. Different arena, same law. When recognition disappears, weak men ask, how do I get it back? Strategic men ask, what still remains under my control? Machiavelli wrote that fortune is the ruler of half our actions, while leaving part of them to us. That distinction is everything. You cannot control whether she replies. You can control whether her silence dismantles you. Law 1. Silence reveals dependency. Attention can hide weakness. Withdrawal exposes it. When someone wants you, replies quickly, laughs at your words, sends warmth, gives desire, and makes you feel selected, The relationship can feel like strength. But sometimes it is not strength. Sometimes it is borrowed stability. You feel calm because the signal is still coming. You feel confident because the mirror is still reflecting you back. Then the signal disappears. Suddenly your concentration changes, your confidence changes, your routine changes. You check your phone when you should be working. You replay conversations when you should be sleeping. You lose discipline over a message that has not arrived. This is where most men lie to themselves. They say, "I just want to know what happened." Sometimes that is true. But often the deeper truth is colder. They do not want information. They want their identity returned to them. Do not shame yourself for feeling the sting. Study it. The emotion is data. When rejection makes you beg, it reveals dependency. When rejection makes you perform, it reveals dependency. When rejection makes you attack, it reveals dependency. When rejection makes you over-explain, it reveals dependency. When rejection makes you withdraw dramatically, so she notices your absence, it still reveals dependency. The first diagnostic question is not, "Why did she ignore me?" The first diagnostic question is, "What does rejection make me do?" Because that behavior shows where your self-command is weakest. A man can appear disciplined when life is feeding him validation. He can appear calm when desire is returning on schedule. He can appear confident when someone is choosing him daily. But command is not measured when the environment supports your ego. Command is measured when the reinforcement disappears and you still keep the promises you made to yourself. This applies beyond women. A friend stops inviting you. A client delays the answer. A company overlooks you. Your family does not understand your ambition. Your work receives no applause. If every withdrawal of attention breaks your structure, then people do not need to control you directly. They only need to remove recognition and watch you collapse. That is the humiliation most men never name. They think they are independent because they do not ask for help, but their mood still depends on being noticed. They think they are strong because they do not cry. But one missing message can make them abandon the day. They think they do not need approval. But they monitor who watched, who liked, who replied, who stayed, who left. Silence does not create the wound. Silence reveals the wound. And what is revealed can finally be disciplined. But dependency on what? Law. 2. Attention is a resource, not a tribute. Many men secretly convert female attention into social currency. She desires me, therefore I am desirable. She chooses me, therefore I have value. She ignores me, therefore I have fallen in rank. Destroy that equation. Because the moment another person's attention becomes proof of your worth, they acquire a lever over your identity without even asking for it. Attention is information. It is not a crown. If she takes 12 hours to reply, that is information. If you stop working, stop training, and start decoding her mood like a financial chart, that is dependency. If she becomes distant, that is information. If your entire sense of masculinity becomes unstable, that is dependency. If she loses interest, that is information. If you interpret it as proof that you are nothing, you have allowed one person's changing state to become your private government. Attention rises, attention falls, people become attracted, people lose attraction, people get busy, people change priorities, some communicate badly, some disappear. None of this means you should become numb. Numbness is not power. Numbness is often just fear wearing armor. The stronger rule is this: your internal valuation cannot be marked to market every time another human changes position. Machiavelli observed that men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands. He was writing about political perception, not dating. But the principle transfers cleanly. People respond heavily to what they can observe. Your composure is observable. Your desperation is observable. Your standards are observable. Your emotional instability is observable. So is a life with direction. When you chase, plead, accuse, perform, or collapse, you are not only trying to get her back, you are showing her what attention does to your nervous system. You are making your dependency visible. And once dependency becomes visible, respect rarely increases. This is why chasing often fails even when it creates a response. You may get a reply, but you lose position. You may get a few words, but you teach the other person that silence can move you faster than respect can. You may feel relief for one evening, but you have trained your mind to treat rejection as an emergency and attention as medication. A man with self-command does not demand tribute in the form of attention. He evaluates attention. He reads it. He observes its pattern. He accepts that interest must be mutual, not extracted. And then he returns to the one thing that cannot be outsourced, his structure. If you are the right viewer, stop mistaking consumption for progress. You already know the truth. Your problem is not that you lack advice. Your problem is that you lack a deeper system that turns knowledge into proof, discipline, positioning, leverage, and self-command. If you keep collecting ideas without changing your behavior, another year will pass, and your life will still depend on reactions you do not control. Inside Patreon, I go deeper into private frameworks, unfiltered breakdowns, proof, positioning, discipline, funnels, leverage, and the architecture of command. It is not for men who want comfort, excuses, or emotional entertainment. It is for men who are finished pretending that understanding is the same as transformation. The decision is yours. Now understand the danger. Once attention becomes tribute, you start negotiating with missing information. And missing information is where most men lose their minds. Law 3. Never negotiate against missing information. She did not reply. That is information. She is manipulating me. That is a theory. She found someone better. Theory. She wants me to chase. Theory. She is intimidated. Theory. She is testing my masculinity. Theory. The wounded ego hates incomplete information. It would rather invent a painful story than sit with uncertainty. So it fills the silence with motives. Then it begins making strategic decisions against enemies who may not even exist. This is how insecurity disguises itself as intelligence. A man will say, "I know what she is doing." No, you do not. You know she has not replied. Everything after that must be treated carefully unless there is a pattern. Ghosting research shows why certainty is dangerous here. People end contact for different reasons. Some avoid discomfort. Some lose interest. Some are overwhelmed. Some are immature. Some are careless. Some are protecting themselves. Recent experimental work has even found that people who are ghosted may underestimate how much the ghoster still cares about their well-being. That does not make ghosting respectful communication. It means you often do not know the motive, so stop pretending you do. Power begins with accurate perception, not flattering stories, not paranoid stories, reality. This is where the Machiavellian man separates himself from the reactive man. The reactive man needs a villain quickly because a villain gives his ego something to attack. The strategic man waits for observable patterns because patterns reveal more than fantasies. Did she respond late once? That is different from repeatedly disappearing. Has her investment declined for weeks? That is different from one difficult day. Is this a casual conversation? That is different from an established relationship where conflict must eventually be discussed. Did she ask for space, a name, a time to return? That is different from vanishing while expecting you to remain available. Every context changes the correct response. The weak man hates this because nuance denies him emotional release. He wants one rule that lets him feel powerful immediately. Ignore her, block her, chase her, punish her, replace her, prove something. But power is not emotional speed. Power is accurate, action under pressure. If you act before perception becomes accurate, you are not commanding the situation. You are obeying anxiety. At midnight, when you are refreshing her profile, you are not gathering intelligence. You are asking the algorithm for sedation. When you inspect who she followed, you are not being strategic. You are looking for an image sharp enough to justify your panic. When you replay every sentence you said, you are not analyzing. You are placing your worth on trial without evidence. This is where many men become ridiculous privately. They appear composed outside, but inside they are building entire court cases out of silence. They accuse. They defend. They imagine rivals. They imagine hidden messages. They imagine tests. They imagine betrayal. Then they react to the imaginary world as if it were confirmed reality. Do not do this. A man who cannot tolerate incomplete information will always be easy to manipulate by absence, because silence will make him move. Delay will make him confess. Uncertainty will make him lower his price. Distance will make him prove himself. And the person who can make you prove yourself without offering evidence has already placed you beneath the situation. So here is the rule. Act on observable patterns, not emotional inventions. If there is a reasonable need for clarification, communicate clearly once, not 5 times, not across 3 platforms, not through indirect posts. Once, then observe. If the pattern improves, reality changed. If the pattern continues, reality also spoke. And when reality speaks repeatedly, you do not need to keep interrogating the silence. You need to decide what your investment should become. Because the next question is not, what does she secretly mean? The next question is, how much of yourself are you still willing to invest when the evidence is already speaking? Law 4. Reciprocity determines investment. Do not invest according to fantasy. Invest according to reciprocity. When another person consistently brings interest, effort, honesty, time, curiosity, and presence, greater investment can be justified. When reciprocity repeatedly falls, your investment should fall with it, not as punishment, as allocation. This is where weak men misunderstand strength. They think lowering investment means acting cold. They think it means teaching her a lesson. They think it means making her feel what they felt. But that is still emotional accounting. That is still behavior organized around her reaction. A strategic man does not reduce investment to hurt someone. He reduces investment because reality no longer justifies the same allocation. Your attention is a resource. Your time is a resource. Your emotional availability is a resource. Your capacity to focus, build, train, earn, think, and execute is not unlimited. If you give high investment to low reciprocity, you are not being loyal. You are mismanaging your own power. This is where many men humiliate themselves slowly. Not in one dramatic act, not in one desperate message, but through repeated small betrayals of their own standards. She gives less, he gives more. She becomes vague, he becomes clearer. She withdraws, he explains. She delays, he waits. She gives crumbs, he builds a feast around them. And then he calls it devotion. No, it is not devotion when the evidence says stop and your hunger says continue. It is dependency with a romantic vocabulary. Reciprocity is not about perfect equality in every moment. Human beings have difficult days. People get tired. People have obligations. People have seasons of pressure. A mature man can distinguish between temporary imbalance and repeated non-reciprocation. That distinction matters. A woman who had one difficult day is not the same as a woman who consistently treats your presence as optional. A partner who says, "I need space and I will speak tomorrow," is not the same as someone who disappears and expects your loyalty to remain waiting at the door. A busy person who still communicates respect is not the same as a careless person who benefits from your patience. You do not need paranoia. You need pattern recognition. If you are in an established relationship, withdrawal during conflict requires a different response from casual ghosting. Research covering 74 studies and more than 14,000 participants found that demand-withdraw patterns, where one person pressures while the other retreats, have meaningful associations with poorer relational and communication outcomes. So do not turn this doctrine into childish hardness. If there is a real relationship, real history, real accountability, and real conflict, the mature move may be clear communication, not disappearance. But if you are dealing with a dating prospect who repeatedly offers low effort, low clarity, low curiosity, and low presence, the law is simple. Reduce investment. Not to manipulate. Not to punish. Not to punish. Not to create scarcity. To stop making fantasy more expensive than reality. Weak dating advice tells you to manufacture scarcity. Reply later because she replied late. Post another woman. Make her jealous. Disappear deliberately. This is not self-command. This is insecurity wearing a tactical mask. The objective is not to create anxiety inside her. The objective is to stop creating dependency inside yourself. A man with self-command does not need to perform indifference. He simply sees what is in front of him and adjusts. High reciprocity receives more access. Low reciprocity receives less access. Persistent non-reciprocity receives exit. This creates a cold peace, because now you are not guessing your worth from her mood. You are reading evidence. You are not asking, "How can I make her value me?" You are asking, "What has she shown me consistently?" That question protects you from fantasy. But even after a man understands this law, he often violates it. Why? Because pain demands relief. Law 5. Never trade dignity for temporary relief. Why do you send the unnecessary message? Usually not because it is strategically brilliant. Because anxiety wants relief. Why check whether she viewed your story? Relief. Why inspect who she followed? Relief. Why reread the old conversation looking for the exact sentence where the energy changed? Relief. Why send, "Did I do something wrong?" Sometimes it is genuine communication. But after repeated non-response, it often becomes an attempt to stop uncertainty from hurting. Even a bad reply can feel better than silence because at least something happened. You regained contact. You pulled a sound out of the void. For a moment, the nervous system relaxes. For a moment, the mind says, "I still exist to this person." But that is the trap. Every time you train yourself to relieve rejection through pursuit, you teach your nervous system a dangerous equation. Her attention equals safety. Now she does not merely possess your interest, her response regulates you. That is a dangerous form of dependence because it does not look like slavery from the outside. Nobody sees chains, nobody hears orders, nobody watches you bow. But internally, your day rises and falls according to another person's silence. This is how men lose self-respect in private, not because they are weak by nature, because they repeatedly purchase short-term relief with long-term dignity. One more text, one more check, one more explanation, one more attempt to sound calm while clearly seeking reassurance, one more late-night inspection of her profile, one more performance of not caring, one more indirect post, hoping she understands the message. At midnight, refreshing her profile is not intelligence, it is sedation. You are not seeking truth, you are trying to numb uncertainty. And the cost is higher than you think. Because every time you surrender to that impulse, you weaken your ability to tolerate emotional discomfort. You become less capable of waiting, less capable of observing, less capable of letting reality reveal itself without forcing it, less capable of preserving standards when your ego is hungry. A man with self-respect can tolerate temporary discomfort without purchasing relief at the price of his standards. He can feel rejected without converting rejection into an emergency. He can want an answer without acting as if he is entitled to one. He can be disappointed without becoming undisciplined. This is practical self-respect. Not a slogan, not a motivational quote, not an image you post after being hurt. Self-respect is the ability to feel the urge to betray yourself and refuse. You will still feel the pull. You will still want to check. You will still want to ask. You will still want to make one more attempt. The difference is that now the impulse is not king. You see it, you name it, you let it pass. Then you return to your structure. And this is where the deeper power appears. Because when you stop chasing relief, you create space for judgment. You can finally ask, what does the evidence show? Not, how do I stop hurting? Not, how do I get her to reply? Not, how do I recover the feeling of being wanted? What does the evidence show? That question restores command. But then comes the seductive alternative. The one that feels stronger than chasing, but is often just as obedient. Revenge. Law 6. Do not weaponize silence back. She ignored you. Ignore her harder. She waited 3 hours. Wait 6. She made you jealous. Make her jealous. She disappeared. Disappear with theater. This sounds powerful to men who are still controlled. It feels like strength because it gives them action. It gives them a move. It lets the ego say, I am not helpless. I can hurt back. I can create uncertainty too. But ask one question. Who is still determining your behavior? Her. If your silence exists to make her wonder, she still owns the objective. If your Instagram post exists to make her regret leaving, she is still the audience. If your success fantasy depends on imagining her watching, you did not escape validation. You only changed its costume. If your absence is designed to produce her anxiety, then her reaction is still your reward. That is not command. That is revenge with a leash. The weaker philosophy says, she ignored you, so ignore her harder. The stronger philosophy asks, why would I organize my conduct around revenge? A man whose behavior exists to trigger someone else is still being controlled by them. This is the contradiction most men do not want to face. They can stop chasing and still remain obsessed. They can stop texting and still build their entire silence around her. They can disappear publicly while remaining mentally present every hour. They can call it detachment while secretly waiting for evidence that the tactic worked. If your silence has an audience, it is still performance. If your discipline is built to impress her, it is still dependence. If your improvement is fueled only by proving her wrong, then she remains inside the architecture of your ambition. Now, use anger if you must. Use humiliation if it wakes you. Use rejection if it reveals the cost of weakness. But do not make another person the center of your transformation. That center must belong to your own standard. The stronger man does something psychologically harder. No begging. No punishment, no performance of indifference, no theatrical coldness, no childish strategy designed to create anxiety. He simply adjusts investment to reality and continues. That is why revenge is still obedience when the enemy chooses your schedule. And understand this beyond women. If you build your life to make your family regret doubting you, they still govern the emotional meaning of your success. If you build your body to make old friends envy you, they still occupy the throne inside your discipline. If you build money only so people who ignored you finally notice, then recognition remains the master and wealth becomes the costume. This is not sovereignty. This is a more impressive form of dependence. The man who becomes truly dangerous does not need revenge to move. He does not need an enemy watching. He does not need an apology. He does not need the crowd to understand. His conduct comes from standards that survive attention and survive neglect. This is the difference between reaction and command. Reaction says, "Because you ignored me, I will become cold." Command says, "Because I respect myself, I will not distort my behavior around your absence." Reaction says, "I want you to feel what I felt." Command says, "I will not spend my life distributing my pain." Reaction says, "I hope you see me now." Command says, "I am building whether you see me or not." If you are the right viewer, stop calling reaction power. You already know the truth. The real problem is not that someone ignored you, it is that their silence still organizes your attention, your discipline, your identity, and your sense of rank. If you stay there, you will keep changing tactics while remaining governed by the same need for validation. Inside Patreon, I go deeper into private frameworks, unfiltered breakdowns, proof, positioning, discipline, funnels, leverage, and self-command for men who are done mistaking emotional motion for progress. It is not for spectators, excuse-makers, or men who want philosophy without execution. Subscribe here, then enter the deeper system only if you are ready to be measured by proof instead of intention. The decision is yours. And this brings us to the final law, the one that determines whether rejection becomes damage or leverage. Law 7. Your life must remain larger than the rejection. A woman can become important to your life. She must never become the architecture holding your life together. Your purpose must survive rejection. Your income must survive rejection. Your training must survive rejection. Your discipline must survive rejection. Your friendships must survive rejection. Your standards must survive rejection. Your ability to work when your ego hurts must survive rejection. Because this lesson is larger than women. A friend may stop supporting you. A company may overlook you. A client may reject you. Your family may never understand what you are trying to build. The crowd may ignore your work for years. If every withdrawal of recognition can make you abandon your structure, you will spend your life governed by external votes. This is why a man's life must be built with internal load-bearing walls. Not everything can depend on attention. Not everything can depend on approval. Not everything can depend on being understood. Not everything can depend on being chosen. A relationship should enter a man's life. It should not become the structure that gives him identity, direction, and psychological oxygen. If your routine collapses when she disappears, your routine was not strong enough. If your ambition fades when she stops admiring you, your ambition was too dependent on applause. If your self-worth collapses when she withholds warmth, your self-worth was being rented, not owned. Machiavelli wrote, "Only those defenses are good, certain, and durable, which depend only on yourself and your own ability." He was writing about states. Apply the principle to character. Build defenses that cannot be withdrawn by another person's mood. Competence, discipline, financial options, physical strength, friends who tell you the truth. Work that matters. Standards you keep when nobody rewards you for keeping them. A man without structure becomes easy to destabilize. Give him attention and he inflates. Remove attention and he deteriorates. Praise him and he performs. Ignore him and he panics. Desire him and he feels powerful. Reject him and he feels worthless. That is not masculinity. That is emotional dependence with a deeper voice. Your life must be larger than any one person's response because power requires continuity. You cannot build anything serious if every emotional disturbance interrupts your execution. You cannot become undeniable if one silence steals a week of focus. You cannot create leverage if your attention belongs to anyone who knows how to withdraw warmth. The world does not stop testing men because they feel wounded. Bills continue, work continues, training continues, competition continues, time continues. Your future does not care that your ego is bruised. This is the harsh mercy of reality. It does not pause for your rejection. And if you are wise, you will learn from that. You will stop asking life to become gentle before you become disciplined. When attention disappears, return to the life that existed before the rejection and make that life stronger. Return to the work. Return to the body. Return to the skill. Return to the schedule. Return to the friends who sharpen you. Return to the proof you said you were building before desire distracted you. Do not return as a wounded performer trying to make her watch. Return as a man correcting the weakness her absence exposed. That is the cold transformation, not pretending you do not care, not becoming cruel, not becoming numb, not using women as enemies, not turning pain into theatrical dominance. The transformation is simpler and harder. You stop letting attention command your nervous system. You stop treating silence as a verdict. You stop making another person's response the center of your identity. And you build a life that does not collapse without applause. So, when a woman ignores you, what do you actually do? First, do not invent motives. Second, if the situation reasonably calls for clarification, communicate clearly once. Third, observe the pattern. Fourth, adjust your investment according to reciprocity. Fifth, do not chase across platforms, demand access, or force closure. Sixth, do not retaliate with manufactured silence. Seventh, return your attention to the life that existed before the rejection and make that life stronger. Not because pretending not to care will attract her back. Maybe she returns, maybe she does not. That is precisely the point. Your strategy cannot depend on an outcome you do not control. You were taught to interpret being chosen as victory. Now understand something colder. Being chosen is not the deepest form of power. Remaining yourself when you are not chosen is. Any man can feel confident when wanted. Any man can feel important while praised. Any man can appear detached while receiving abundance. Self-command is measured when reinforcement disappears, when nobody answers, when nobody applauds, when somebody walks away, and you still keep the promises you made to yourself. That is the transition from needing attention to evaluating attention, from chasing certainty to reading evidence, from demanding recognition to building a life that does not collapse without it. From reaction to command. The true measure of self-command is not how you behave when wanted, it is how little you betray yourself when you are not. And there is a harder question beneath all of this. If her silence exposed your dependency, what else in your life has the same power over you? A friend's approval, a parent's doubt, a boss's recognition, a client's reply, a stranger's opinion, a crowd that has not noticed your work yet. If your identity still requires recognition before it can stand upright, then this was never only about one woman. Her silence was simply the mirror. The real issue is whether you can build command before the world gives you permission to feel powerful. That is the man this channel is speaking to. Not the man looking for tricks. Not the man looking for revenge. Not the man looking for a script to manipulate attention back into his hands. The man who understands that abandonment can become discipline, discipline can become skill, skill can become proof, proof can become leverage, and leverage can become freedom. But only if he stops worshipping the attention that keeps interrupting his rise. So do not chase silence. Do not weaponize silence. Do not build your life around being chosen. Read the pattern. Protect your dignity. Adjust your investment. Return to your structure. And when recognition disappears, do not beg it to return. Find out whether you still command yourself.